Hey guys, how's it going? I want to talk about the concept of worship and how the early Christians understood the reverence that is due to the one true God and the reverence that is due to Jesus, the human Messiah. And it's really interesting when you look at the nuances of the Greek words and how the concept of worship was used even in the Hebrew Bible. So first, we can recognize that Jesus said in the temptation narratives in Matthew chapter 4 and in Luke chapter 4 that God is worthy of worship. You should worship the Lord your God, and him only shall you serve. Now, the verb here to serve is latrevo. And if you look in the New Testament, latrevo is consistently used of the Father. It's not used of the Son, and it's certainly not used of the Holy Spirit. We'll come back and talk about the Holy Spirit in just a second. Now, when early Christians did worship Jesus, which is something that did happen, they used the verb proskuneo. It's a different verb than the verb latrevo, because latrevo is exclusively used for God, but proskuneo is a very flexible word, and it's used for several other highly qualified human beings. If you take a look at the Greek translation of the Old Testament, your Septuagint, you're going to see a variety of highly qualified human beings that are legitimately the object of the verb proskuneo. So take, for example, Joseph, Jethro, Jacob, Jonathan, King Saul, King David, King Solomon, Elisha, Daniel. They're all the objects of proskuneo in the way that the biblical authors actually agree with, because it was okay in that culture to give honor and reverence to a human being, and nobody thought that was blasphemous. So we could see this quite clearly in 1 Chronicles 29, verse 20, where it says, all the congregation of Israel bowed low, and they worshiped Yahweh and the king. Notice that Yahweh and the king are both the objects of the verbs to bow low and to worship, because you could worship God and you could worship the king alongside God, and that wasn't a threat to monotheism in any sort of way. So in the New Testament, it's quite clear that people are worshiping the one true God, they're worshiping the Father, and they're also worshiping Jesus as the Messiah. But what's interesting is that there's no occurrence anywhere in the New Testament, nor in the Old Testament for that matter, where the Holy Spirit is the object of worship. That's very interesting. And if you're a Trinitarian, this is a problem for you, because it indicates that early Christians did not think that the Holy Spirit was a conscious being that was worthy of worship. Yes, they gave latrevo worship to the Father, and they gave proskuneo worship to Jesus. But even Jesus said in Revelation chapter 3, verse 9, that Christians, yes, Christians, the followers of Christ, they are worthy of worship. They're worthy of proskuneo worship. But the Holy Spirit is never once the object of worship. That's because the early Christians were not Trinitarians, they were Unitarians. Don't forget to subscribe.